used to be. We used to be a small team, started with a one-person team, then it grew to 3 and then 4, and then now currently we're at 10.
Wow.
And what happens with when you grow a team is that a lot of times you increase in productivity, but you also, your engagement might take a hit.
I thought we'd just start by maybe saying how you got into the space and what maybe you found in those initial few months, and then we can just dive right into your team expansion and team structure and that kind of thing.
Sure. So I majored in computer science, so I was on the technical piece side of it. And then once I graduated, I was looking for jobs, but I also wanted to get involved on the business side of it. So I was a little unsure on what my career path looked like. So I applied to different positions and ultimately ended up in end user software specialist role, which was an basically a user-facing role where it was technical as well as there was the people side of it. And that's when I first got introduced to Salesforce from an end user side of it. And I really liked the platform, how along with the technical side of it, you get to learn the business aspects. So as I got more involved on the end user side, I slowly transitioned into an integration specialist. So that required me to implement a project management tool in the Salesforce platform itself. It was a third-party tool. And once I got into the nitty-gritty piece of it, and then eventually a role opened up on the Salesforce team. So ultimately, that's how I got into the role of my current role, as well as into the Salesforce team. So yeah.
Awesome. And you're enjoying it? You're thinking this is where I want to be?
Yes, long term, I do want to get into management. So, but right now, I'm focusing on gaining my skill set in terms of not just Salesforce, but anything in terms of business and the Salesforce technical side. I'm not quite sure what direction the technical skill sets are. Like, for example, I want to go towards development or the architecture path. So I'm still trying to figure that piece out. But the ultimate goal is to get to a management role, which I currently am, but becoming a director or something. And I'm planning on getting my MBA next fall.
Oh, awesome. Where are you going to do that?
I haven't decided yet. I was thinking about somewhere in Canada or in the US, some school, not quite sure.
Yeah. Cool. So you said you just expanded your team, is that right? And you've got a new project going on. So walk me through that. What's your sort of current team size at the moment, and where are you going with that? Because I speak to some people and they're literally like, it's me and one other person and we're just in charge of all this stuff. So it always surprises me how small these teams are.
Right. That's interesting that you say that, because that's what we used to be. We used to be a small team, started with a one-person team, then it grew to 3 and then 4, and then now currently we're at 10.
Wow.
And what happens with when you grow a team is that a lot of times you increase in productivity, but you also, your engagement might take a hit. And that's something that happened to us, because as we hired more and more people, we had the first 2-3 people that were doing everything. But as you hire more people, you have to let go of things, and that's something that it took us time to figure out on the roles and responsibilities piece of it, which is every year we do an annual engagement survey, and the engagement piece in terms of the roles and responsibilities, our team scored low, because as we grew, everyone was doing everything. And when I say everything, I mean in terms of the project lifecycle. Everyone was going into key initiative meetings, scoping out the project itself, building the project, and then implementing, and at the end, supporting it as well. So we had like all the 6, 7, 10 people doing everything. And
Yeah.
that kind of created a chaos, and we needed to figure that out, and because it was impacting engagement, and you do not want disengaged employees.
No.
So one of the ways we did that was in terms of breaking it down, like how do you bring a disengaged employee to an engaged employee? And that's focusing on like the anatomy part of it, which is what are they good at? What do they like? So the anatomy piece of it, what are they good at? What are their strengths? So being competent on something, right? And then the purpose, explaining it to them what projects they're working on and why they're working on something. And that ties to, again, a big thing that we do is we ask you, what is your biggest ambitious goal? That could be 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. And whatever your goal is, every quarter we have 3 tactical goals that you should hit in order for you to, that will eventually help you get to that big goal. And we tie that purpose piece to the 3 technical goals. So you're very engaged because you're doing, the purpose, that your ultimate purpose is to reach that ambitious goal. So and that as a result, you're more engaged while you're doing any kind of project. And that's how we assign projects as well, because let's say I want to go down the management path or the finance side of it, then any departmental projects that are coming from the finance team are being assigned to me, because that's helping me get the financial acumen that I need.
Amazing. That's such a good system to have in place, and that is something that I've heard before, where the team's grown and people aren't communicating. Essentially, I reckon that's probably a key thing. So in terms of understanding sort of team competencies and understanding where to allocate people, how do you guys go about understanding that?
So it starts off with the hiring process. You look at the resume and what are their strengths, what have they done in the past, and what do they want to do in the future? What are they good at? And you don't find that out right away. You work with them, and once you figure out their strengths, someone who is good in, for example, one of our members, she was good in project management piece of it versus the actual technical side of Salesforce, right? So that was her strength, and what we utilized that strength to get her in a more non-technical role, but still on the Salesforce team in terms of project management piece, for key initiatives, that as well as departmental projects. So utilizing that strength, and that allows her to, one, be creative in what she's good at, as well as a purpose, because that's the career path that she wants to go down. So it's helping all 3 criteria that we try to hit.
Yeah, amazing. And then that's just like win-win on the team level and on the personal development side. So that's amazing. Nice. So in terms of your team of 10 at the moment, what's the kind of pyramid structure like? How many, have you just got one guy at the top and some analysts at the bottom? What's that looking like?
So currently the team is going through a restructure. What we have right now is, as of right now, and this might potentially change, is that on the top, we have our director. She has 2 managers. One is the systems manager, and then the other one is the RevOps manager.
Okay.
So we actually have the team broken down into 2. And the systems manager focuses on like just building anything that is not RevOps related.
Okay.
So because like we are such a centralized team in terms of like we're critical to every business processes that we build, or business strategy. Exactly. So every team, anytime someone needs a process, there needs to be a Salesforce process or a business process that is being built in Salesforce. So the business systems manager handles that side of it. The RevOps manager, which is a new role that we created in the past 6-7 months. So and she is responsible in terms of handling the sales team, and as well as partner leads, and because we have a big partner network. In fact, our partner network is bigger than our direct team. So she is responsible for the RevOps, your typical RevOps responsibilities. And then under the RevOps manager, we have 3 people.
Okay.
And then on the business system side of it, which is where I am, we have 6 people, 6 or 7 people. So that's the current structure. And then in terms of who's reporting, we have a new role that we created. Basically, the first person who built our system, he has moved into an architectural role. So he's an architect, as well as another person who is eventually going to move into the architecture role as well. So we have 2 architects, and then we recently, like a month or 2 months ago, we hired an in-house developer. We used to have third-party developers for almost 3 years now, but this is our first in-house developer. So we are definitely growing, and we're trying to bring operations in-house versus deploying it to external people.
Yeah, sure. So with that and kind of keeping it more in-house, in terms of the tech that you guys have in place to help with the processes that you need, are they normally like homegrown solutions that you found, or have you found some sort of external platforms to be really, really successful?
We almost have no in-house solution. Everything we do is in the cloud. We're a very mobile company. We even before the pandemic, we were pretty remote friendly. So we needed to be on the cloud. We needed platforms that were easily accessible. So we use Asana for project management, Jira for actually agile implementation. So we use external systems.
Okay, and then have they been there for as long as you know them, or are they kind of new? Does the tech change a lot? Because there's so many different platforms, obviously. Sometimes things go out of date quickly and that kind of thing. I mean, are these quite sustainable, would you say?
Yes, well, so that's interesting because maybe like 2 years ago, we were heavily focused on how do we become more efficient, and project management was key to that, getting it right, having a project from the first stage of submitting the project request all the way to the supporting piece of it. How do we control that? And that when we started evaluating that process is when we started introducing Asana, Jira, and then having metrics, data-driven metrics from Jira in terms of how many story points are we completing each sprint? What's our velocity? And what's the scope of the project? So that's when we focused on these third-party tools, and we have been good so far in terms of staying with the tool. Over time, we keep on adding new tools so that we can become even more efficient. But in terms of staying with it, it's been pretty consistent.
Okay, nice. That's really good. So you mentioned there just like metrics. How do you know which metrics to kind of focus on that's going to really drive team efficiency and sales effectiveness and all that kind of thing? Because that's the thing we love to ask people, because I think there's no surefire way of knowing. Every company's different. So when it comes to aligning the teams around the metrics that matter, how do you guys go about that?
So this is a new thing that I was put in charge of, was that basically not the sales side of it, because that's the RevOps team that focuses on that, but for our metrics, what was our focus was on how do we become more efficient, our team, in terms of building projects. What are the KPIs for our ops team, not the sales team, but for the ops team itself. And that was driven through, because we broke it down to basically we wanted to tell a story on what was happening, or what happened in 2020, what happened in 2019. And we broke it down into our main focuses in terms of how many projects did we complete, how many tasks, how many stories were we completing each sprint. And we have two-week sprints. So how many stories were we completing? How big were these stories, or what projects were they associated with? And then the support itself, like, because we also have cases coming in once post deployment. You have cases coming in where that data doesn't look right, or the process for whatever reason doesn't work. So the support piece of it, how many cases were being created, how many cases were being result each day, each week, or each month. So we broke it down into those KPIs, as well as a big piece of everything is meetings, right? So we use Google. So and Domo is our analytical tool. So Domo also has connectors for Google Calendar. So what we did was we brought in how many meetings are people setting up each week or during that sprint itself. That kind of all these pieces tied together, we could tell a great story on what is going on. Why did we not perform as well as we did last sprint? So those were basically our key metrics.
Okay, amazing. That's actually so interesting to put that, because something that seems quite intangible often on the ops side of things is how do you like measure that success? How can you look back at the evidence and be like, this went well or this didn't? So that's so good that you guys had something like that in place. In terms of Domo being your analytical tool, does that mean all your data is in there and that kind of tells you everything you need to know?
Yep, it is. Yeah. So we have a business intelligence team, and that's like a 6-people team. And you're right. So because Domo allows all these connectors and customizable API connectors, everything, all of our Salesforce data is being connected to Domo. Our software itself is connected to the database. Domo is connected to the database, as well as anything our product team uses, for example, Pendo or WalkMe. All of these tools are connected to Domo, so everything flows into Domo, and the team aggregates the data and comes up with the KPIs, metrics, as well as just basically all the data in Domo.
Okay, amazing. So in terms of aligning your team with, say, like marketing and anything else, I know you're slightly more on the kind of system side of things, but do you have any insights into how to keep teams aligned, like right across the commercial side of the business?
I honestly don't.
No.
I don't think I can speak to that. I don't have enough knowledge in terms of the alignment. I don't think I can.
Okay, fair. So something I love to ask people, particularly people who are kind of got these great aspirations, like if you had a room full of like RevOps or BizOps or systems people and they were all absolutely smashing it, and you could ask them a couple of questions about maybe your own personal development or how they've got to where they are or systems that they've got in place that they're loving, what kind of thing would you want to know from the community?
Well, that's a great question. I think how do you become more efficient as a team as you grow? What processes and what data are you really looking into? Like your structure, your team structure itself, as you grow, how do you go about it? Because I do think we have done a good job about it, but you can always improve. And someone that has gone through it, how do you structure your team to become even more efficient? Because you don't want to just grow in numbers, you also want to become more efficient. So how do you do that? What data are you looking at? And I am a big believer of data-driven decisions. So anything that can help us become more efficient, I'm all for it. So that would be something that I would like to know from other people.
Yeah, that'd be great. In terms of efficiency at the moment, do you find how's your kind of time management in the team? Because a lot of people say, particularly maybe at more like a director level, that they've got all these things to do and they're helping everyone, but then they've also got to find that time to think strategically and think about where they're going. So in terms of your team, do you find you guys have got time for that kind of thing?
That was when I first got promoted into a lead, it was quite an adjustment because I was working on building the processes, my day-to-day, and then meetings and everything. In addition to that, I had to manage someone now. So so it was an adjustment, and that's when it came down to letting go of things and handing it to someone else, sharing the knowledge with the team. documenting, because that's something that we really put our focus on, documentation after post deployment, where just because that allows you to now share the knowledge and someone else can take over in case a support ticket comes in, or if you need to enhance the process itself in the future. So documentation really helped, as well as just letting go of some projects.
Yeah, sure. How do you keep everything kind of documented? Is this all on Salesforce?
It's not. So we have Google Docs for each project.
Cool.
We have scoping documentation, which tells us what our thinking process was when we built the process itself. And then we also have, there's a section, so there are multiple sections on what the requirement is, what the reasoning behind is, who the executive sponsor is for the projects, and then what is the build itself, how does the build look. And then there's the section of what does the supporting look like. So that one document helps us post deployment.
That's so good. There was someone actually on our blog last week, I think, who was talking about like the value of internal communications and obviously keeping everyone aligned. So that sounds like you've got a really good system. I haven't actually heard anyone using Google Docs, but I'm surprised because it sounds very useful.
Oh yeah, we moved it from Microsoft to Google almost 2 years ago, and it's been a game changer, especially with people working remotely. It's so easy to share docs, and we almost got rid of Office, and everyone is on the cloud now.
Nice. Okay, awesome. Well, I've got one sort of final question for you, maybe, which might be interesting, might not be. You was obviously talking about your own personal ambitions, which is great. So in terms of what you think you could be better at, do you have an area of like personal development that you're really working on, specifically within yourself?
Absolutely. I'm always trying to learn. I definitely think I can gain some more technical skills in the Salesforce platform itself. I can go for more certifications, and that which kind of sets me up to, once that is taken care of, allows me to focus on the people side of it, and as well as the business side of it when I go apply for my MBA. So certifications, maybe more certifications in the Salesforce platform itself, or I have been so focused on the system side of it. Maybe I would like to explore the RevOps side as well. It's kind of a different world in terms of leads, marketing. When you asked me the marketing question, I did not have enough knowledge to talk about it. So that's a cool domain that I would like to explore as well. And this community really allows me to do that. Like, that's why it was really fun reading all the blogs.
Yeah, great. That's so good. In fact, I was just talking to Rory, who's like more involved with the platform, he's one of our co-founders, and he was kind of talking about the importance of identifying the right data out of Salesforce and basically just getting some really good knowledge over the analytics. So in fact, although it's not really why I called you in, but if you'd like to have a chat with him and maybe have a look at our platform and why it's so useful, and you can actually see some of the community threads that go right into our platform, which is a new development we've worked on. So if you'd like to check that out, I'm sure it'd be really valuable for what you want to work on.
Oh, absolutely. I would love that. Whatever helpful articles and like blogs you can send my way would be great, because starting next week, I am actually moving into a consulting role. And so and that's because like I'm eventually going to do my MBA. So I wanted to focus more on like the studying piece of it, as well as eventually I want to do like strategic consulting. So that would be great reading, and I loved reading the blog, so please send me anything
Yeah, sure. I can probably get you some time with Rory this week if you like, because he literally just knows everything and he talks to like top RevOps guys all the time. So if you'd like to learn from him, I'd be more than happy to set up some time for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds good. Well, let me start off by reading the blogs, because I don't want to just set up a meeting with him. Let me try reading the blogs and a little bit on the RevOps side, and then talk to him. But I would definitely like to talk to him at some point. Maybe in like 2 weeks, so that like I'm more aware of what's going on and the metrics, and we can have a better conversation.
Yeah, sure, of course, it's got to be valuable for both of you. Well, obviously you'll keep up to date with my LinkedIn and hopefully with all the community as well. It's so great to hear that you're benefiting from it already, which is exactly what I'm looking to hear. So that's great. Do you have any final questions for me?
Yeah, can you talk about like more about your company? So how big are you folks, and what's the goal?
So I'm quite new. I'm only like 8 weeks in, and we're a company of 8 people, I think, with a contractor in Vietnam who helps on our tech side of things. And essentially, Dan and Rory set up the company 4 years ago with a mission to generate community revenue analytics. So the first thing they did was just interview like nearly 300 RevOps leaders and sort of find where they weren't being like able to use their data properly and find a sort of better forecasting system. And essentially they got all the best practices reporting and forecasting and put it into this incredible platform. So that's the platform's been generating over the last few years. And then I've come in and I'm now sort of responsible for building the community a bit more. So reaching out to guys like yourself and basically keeping a handle on what practices you guys are still working on or some of your challenges, and also more importantly in some of the success stories that you guys are having. And because we want to know about it because we'd love to pride ourselves on deploying best practices with our platform. So that's essentially our mission. And then in terms of the community itself, it's just a mission to have essentially the most important community in RevOps and SaaS, I suppose, and get everyone talking on there and generate a space, which would be awesome.
All right, great. That's awesome.
Okay, great. Well, I've got a couple of key takeaways from the session, which has been amazing, and I think we'll generate some blog posts. I'm not sure exactly the timescale when they come out. It's probably not as organized as it should be, but hopefully we'll get a few takeaways from this session out very, very soon. And obviously find me any questions if you ever need to. And if you'd ever like to chat to Rory, obviously more than welcome as well. So
All right, great. Thank you.
perfect. Thank you so much for your time. Have a really good day.
Thank you as well. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.